Hello there, welcome to another Fort Triumph video with Ungainly Titan, and as you can see, we're on update 0.14.0 and I think this is the latest update now. It's in beta at the moment. I think it's going to be released around the 19th. And there's been quite a few changes. I was going to initially just do a playthrough of the skirmish campaign. The second chapter has been added, I understand, to the story campaign. But I haven't looked at the story campaign yet. I have actually been playing the skirmish campaign for the last 2 days. So today is Wednesday, I'm making the video. This will be up on Thursday. And I've been playing Tuesday and Wednesday on this. I started playing Tuesday at the 4-player faction. That's 3 AI factions and the player faction in the skirmish mode, and I've been getting my ass handed to me. Which is actually quite satisfying. I have actually had to considerably adjust my playstyle, the way I approach the skirmish game, in order to gain some measure of success. Now, I was getting some measure of success on Tuesday evening, but then the game crashed. Now, I do have a save game, which was kindly sent on to me by the developers from the bug report. But I might actually do it from scratch anyway. So you now have the option when you go in to play the skirmish game. By default, it's set whatever difficulty level you have. So I would set it legendary, and you can have 2, 3, or 4 factions. And it's by default it's 3, but I was setting it to 4, and I was finding 4 to be impossible. And it was taking me quite a while to actually adjust. Mostly because the AI is actually a lot better, and it's a much better at actually building upgrades. Prior to this, I used to focus basically on getting a very experienced party together in order to take on the main AI parties. And this generally worked out well for me, but I wouldn't actually spend a lot of money buying heroes. I now find that I have to buy a lot more heroes and field more parties. So there's a priority now getting actually your income up, so that you can buy the heroes and get your capacity to load heroes onto the system quickly up, so as you have a chance, because I found myself now spending a lot of the early game defending my home base against enemy AIs and enemy parties arriving, and these parties were becoming increasingly more difficult to defeat because the building upgrades and the guild upgrades that the AI were now applying fairly efficiently, probably more efficiently than I was. And also, you see, the AI was beating other AI factions. So I was facing not only the AI with, say, the undead and the advantages the undead have, but also they might have taken over the goblin faction, and they now have the capabilities of the goblin, like sneaking out of zones of control without triggering the attack of opportunity, that sort of stuff. So much tougher, much more difficult to beat, and much more of a sustained threat. Now, if you start taking over towns, obviously the balance of power swings fairly strongly in your favour, particularly the more towns you control. But taking over towns and hanging on to towns is two different things. And definitely the more AI factions there are, the more difficult the game is to beat. I'm not too sure how many factions it can support, because it looks like in the menu you have the option of adding further factions. It also potentially supports a hot play co-op, or even hot play adversarial type game, where you could actually play as rival factions or allied factions against the AI in a kind of a hot seat approach. The maps appear to me to be bigger. Certainly the grassland map appears to be bigger. It also seems to have more resources and more accessible resources in the late game. in that you no longer march into territory that the AI have been through and find the whole place stripped of easily accessible resources, and all that's left is stuff that you just are not going to ever attempt to take on. There's still stuff you're probably not going to ever attempt to take on, but neither does the AI. And even though they might be very desirable resources, I think the colours on the world map looks to me like they've changed as well, at least on the grassland map. The crypt and the cavern map looks the same, although again the amount of stuff available seems to me to be more of it and more evenly distributed around the place. So you do have opportunities to gather and build up resources and to farm resources even out into the mid and late game. They've added at least 2 cavern interior maps, and I'll probably take a look at least one of them. Both of them, if I can dig them out in the videos. And I must say I really like them. They're much more interesting terrain types than was previously available in the caverns. You can now have multiple levels in the caverns, and you can have structures other than stalagmites and stalactites, which I think is much better. It makes the cavern a far more tactically richer environment, and very similar in terms of the tactical complexity to what you get in either the crypt maps or in the woodland maps. So let's look a little more closely at the changes. So here you can see the iconography of the main menu has changed, as is the graphic design. I like it, I must say. Basic settings are, I think, pretty much the same. Not sure if you muck around with the speeds, what difference it makes. I've never actually done to it, so if we go into the skirmish, here you have your factions, so you have the random, well actually no, that's the campaign, but the skirmish, you have basic setup, so you can change at a basic level or you can change at an advanced level. The advanced allows you to customize colors, choose whether it's the human running the faction or an AI, and which team the various factions run. So you could set 2 factions to be human versus 1 AI, and you could run both the human factions on the one team, or you could run them as 2 separate teams, and the game could basically, somebody else could be sitting there. It's like a hot seat. All the load screens have changed, and there's now proper graphics that are thematically related to the underlying graphics of the game. I presume that they will have more load screens done of this style. This is the crypt map, I think. No, this is the cavern map. So this is the cavern world map, which is pretty much the same as before. Just starting faction there was the undead faction. And if we jump ahead to one of the battles, we can see here what the one of the new cavern environments, just as soon as the screen loads up. So here we have a cavern environment. We have, obviously it's very different from what we traditionally were associated with. So you've got different levels, you got rocks and pillars. You still have spiders, but not as many. The primary principles, we say, sources to cover on this particular map are going to be the levels and the rocks. I presume the traditional cave will still turn up occasionally. I mean, it's not that I objected to the caves as such. I just felt that they were too much of samey, the sameness of the that particular environment. Although I noticed the spiders and the spider eggs are now getting a different graphic as well from what was previously in case, and you got these glowing wells and various other things. Even fossilized trees or tree roots or something like that. I cannot give a definitive list of what has changed or what hasn't changed, because I presume there's stuff that I haven't seen. And this is a beta version, so the final changelog will be issued when they bring out the actual version live onto the main game later on in the month. And we'll see exactly what has been done then, because I'll be reading the changelog the same as the rest of you guys. However, I do think that the improvements to the game are huge, and it's well worth trying it out, and certainly something to look forward to if you're not interested in playing the beta or getting involved in the beta process. The changes are well worth looking forward to, and I'll probably be have a look at the campaign game as well, and come back next week and report on that too, and maybe a more comprehensive report on the different types of the skirmish game, because being able to choose the number of factions actually makes a considerable difference in the difficulty of the skirmish game. So it'd be interesting to try it with 2 factions, the 3 factions, and have another go at some of the 4 faction games. Now that I've played it a few times and have learned a thing or two, see just exactly, is it difficult? I still think it's probably going to be the most difficult, and I was also curious to know that I can add more factions or not. Is there a limit to how many factions you can have in the game? This will certainly give me something to talk about next Thursday, and then of course, if I'm correct, next Thursday is the 19th, and that's when they're planned to bring out the live version of this current iteration. There's probably going to be extra stuff on it that is not currently in it. Certainly they've intimated in the comments on Discord that this is the part of the plan. So I would certainly look forward to it, and I will sort of tune in next week for more information. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please press like, comment, share. It really helps the channel out. And if you have not already done so, please subscribe to the channel. I will catch you all again soon. Bye for now.